things to do. I mean, they are appointed into institutions, private sector mostly, not government. The problem within our countries, we look at government for appointments or for all the relevance. But in those countries, you become, you're taken on board in those think tanks. You're assisting those private institutions and private companies. There you see them, most of them sitting on boards of very big companies, and providing this the experience. Those who have, if Patrick retires, he goes into those kind of arrangements. They go into their own foundation, set up their own. In my view, should not be talking about power. You should form a foundation. Go out there and do what Obama doing, the Obama Foundation. Set up something, held the money. You should be doing those things, not about the country and the government and politics. And leave those things. You have time now to go and do other, philanthropic work. So there's a lot for retired people to do.
Yeah.
Did you miss on Dr. McPhee before we come to you?
Yeah,
Dr. McPhee, yes.
No, I think this happens already, I have a lot of people who come to me and say, look, can you give me coaching and this, that, and the other? And I'm always ready to do it. The only thing is I'm an incredibly busy person. So the result is I can't do as much as I would like to do. But I think, it is something which, people have got to think about how they can help Kenya. We really got to try to develop patriotism in Kenya. That we're doing things for the country rather than doing them for me and my family, and that's it. I think many people have this idea already. The only thing is that so many people, unfortunately, are in a poor position where almost they can't help themselves. And this is where I think, we've got to try to get people out of this culture of dependency. As James Reggae, I remember, he said, look, he would go around Nairobi with a whole lot of 50-shilling notes because, every other person would come and say, oh, Mashumio, Saidia Mimi Tafadali, and of course he would then be handing out money. But, I think it's important here that we think about even ourselves trying to set up a business, of some kind or another. Mm-hmm. I know I've got an idea which I'm not going to reveal here on TV because someone will steal it from me. but it's a thing where I want to try to get I want to get the Kenyans away from maize, because it's a thing which we're very, very dependent on it. Mm-hmm. I want to get them away from wheat. I have a product which is in fact going to substitute both of those, and well, let's see if it works or not. Maybe it won't work, but I want to get a small person to start this business, and if we can do it, it's going to be a fantastic change for Kenya. Mm-hmm. But anyway, I feel that we've got to.
But you've copyrighted your idea.
Sorry,
you've copyrighted it, isn't it? You've patented it.
No. It's a very simple idea, so that's why I have to keep it secret until I actually reveal it. In the product.
Okay, let's hear from Prof.
All right, Bill, at least you've kept your secret. Me, I wrote models that are being used, but I haven't charged for them.
What models are these? Was it stolen?
Some of the models that are being used in the national campaign. Yes, we wrote those. Now, Dibal, going back to Bill, the issue of social safety net is extremely important for the very vulnerable in this country and in any country. And that's why I say when I'm a social moderate, I believe the government has a role to play in the very vulnerable populations of our people. And that's why the 6,000 shillings would make sense for the very poor that cannot be able to, they're chronically unemployed, they have children. And I remember in 1992 when Bill Clinton came to power, and he says we are going to add welfare the way we know it. And he gave certain parameters to meet for you to stay on welfare up to a certain period of time. Because I did not believe then that generations and generations of Americans should be on government paycheck every single month, where you have the grandmother was on welfare, the mother is on welfare, the children will be on welfare, because it's a lifestyle that develops around that. And that's why for me, the small business administration makes a lot of sense where we get lawyers and accountants and marketers and professionals within these centers across the country that guide our mama bogas and boda riders and everybody who wants to start a small business on the viability of the business itself. What that does, it unleashes the potential that is in our people in every part of this country. And going back to Patrick, the issue of using the retired folks in our society is extremely important. We have a very huge reservoir of knowledge and expertise and experience within our retired communities. There's a program that we had actually done a few years ago, and we were looking at using our retired persons as advisors to small and medium and micro enterprises, such that with all the experience that Bill has had in business, somebody who is 20 or somebody who is in the village will have a business idea, but Bill will be able, and Patrick will be able to look at that and say, no, that's not going to work. The fundamentals of starting this business is so you don't sink money where you're not supposed to be sinking money. And that's why we have sunk all this money in these funds, but we cannot see the impact. We just need to coalesce all that into one entity. And then we work with the banks. And we tell the banks, as a government, I got KCB. If I bank with you, then I need this amount of SBA guarantees to small and micro enterprises. But at the back of it, I know that the government is watching because I have people who are guiding these people on how to grow their businesses. But when you give people money who have no idea how to run a business, just because they have an idea, makes absolutely no sense.
Right. Okay. And I think maybe we've been mixing issues here between so. the monies and also the retirees. I was on that particular point of how then do we, because now I'm assuming this is a very heavy think tank that I have here, that you can help us, even come up with such a model on how we can engage these leaders that we were talking about. President Uhuru Kenyatta, you say, maybe he should think about philanthropy and foundation that will keep him busy. These are issues of maybe you getting to politics while you're young and you retire young, and then you've reached, as I said, the apex of leadership, so to speak, according to the world. This is the presidency. What else can you go beyond the presidency? Then how do we engage? In the African Union, and we were discussing this also with some professors as well. They were saying, you have the Council of the Elders. Yeah, you're taking all these leaders, head of states in Africa. They are the first port of call when it comes to council of issues that are critical pertaining Africa as well. How then can we construct something like that? That yes, we know this is a pool of talent that we can tap into when it comes to advisory consultancy and running affairs of the country.
We need to make mini-injuring checkers, yeah?
Mini-injuring checkers, yeah.
At the end of the day, I mean, what you need is a framework for making that work, right? Once the framework is there, you also need people who have gone beyond the apex of Maslow's, Maslow's hierarchy, yeah? People who are now getting actualization, right? Where they've got, they've got everything they need. They're retired. They're happy where they are, and now they need to apply what it is into the society. Those people are few and far between. Let me tell you that in this country. So there, that is a conversation for a different day in terms of doing social engineering, so that our thinking as Kenyans changes. But with those few people, and I would offer myself, and I'm sure the people sitting on there would offer themselves, I would be happy, right, to give 6 hours a week on specific, within a specific framework that allows me to mentor a couple of businesses here and there. I'm doing it, by the way, currently. I'm actually mentoring 4 businesses where guys are startup and they've grown. And when I've seen the incredible change that has happened, when you mentored a business which was at this level, and within 3 years, they've almost quadrupled their earnings, purely by giving them a small bit of advice here and there as they come through, right? And what they've done, when they've got to that new level, they said, now we want to make you a director of the company and whatever it is, and they want to pay me a small amount for whatever it was. But there's a period when I was doing it because I could see the potential and I saw these people and they needed help and they came. So I've done 4 of them. And I'm sure if all of us who are in whichever way we have been contributing in society, whether it's in the administration, whether we were sort of working in the government or in private sector, at whatever level it is. We have the opportunity individually, when approached, at whether it is in the village area, whether it is in the local market, at the county level, whatever it is, to make that difference. And I think, I'm quite happy to do it, is to set up that framework that allows those people to come in. You check whether they're genuine people, not charlatans who are coming in, and then unleash them onto the population. All right? And I've seen systems in other countries where part of this fund, a very small element, maybe about 0.5% or 1% or 2%, is actually put in to guarantee the success of the money. Yeah, which is what Prof said. You put in, as the lender, you have a certain amount that you put in to make sure that the money is going to be spent well and it's going to earn whatever it's expected to earn on that basis. And it is not, it's a no-brainer. I mean, it's nothing that is difficult to set up. And I believe that if it is done in this country, the multiplier effect of those funds that you're talking about will be incredible on this economy. And all this idea of, we are going to raise taxes, you're going to do this and the other, taxes will just flow. Because successful businesses are not going to be able to hide below the radar of KRA, right? And responsible mentors will make sure that they actually are tax efficient as corporates and they pay tax from that point of view. So I think it's possible.
It's possible. Because when we look also at the civil servants who have retired, we've seen the government now trying to rope in some of its retirees because there is that dichotomy between generations. And there was no model or transitioning period on, you're a consummate engineer, but now you've not really transpolated that particular expertise and mentored someone else to pick it up. So the government, even right now, they're in need of some of these knowledgeable retirees, and they're calling them back. And when I looked at that, I thought this is a systematic problem that we have in this country on how to tap and mentor young generations, to pick up on some of these positions that even the civil servants, have to be called back from, their retirement to try and help the government.
Well, you see, Debal, this is actually happening in Eldoret.
In Eldoret?
Dr. David Some, who came out of Moy University as a retiree, he realized that there was a fatina, okay? Because, in Kenya, we have always the fatina factor that you have to take into consideration. I call it the FF, the fatina factor. So, but anyway, he found that there was this fatina between the different clans of the Kalenjin.
Yes.
So he, in fact, got all the elders together, and he actually got them to work for the benefit of the community there. And that's this form of government which I actually propose for Kenya. I feel this whole thing of elections is misplaced, okay? But anyway, that's another, as Patrick says, it's a story for another day, okay? But anyway, I feel that, there are people who have this ability. And let's face it, if you're going to actually get different groups to work together, you are a real leader. That's, and he has actually shown this. And he's got the people working together for the benefit of those communities. Now, the point is really, I've been working recently with the Dr. engineer James Wangi. It's not the James Wangi of Equity Bank. Okay. He's an engineer, and he calls himself Engineer James Wangi so that he distinguishes himself from, the Dr. James Wangi of Equity Bank. But this man is an absolute genius, and the point is, he's working as a consultant. He's now, he's fairly old, he's over 60, but he in fact is doing incredible work. And I think, this is the case with many of those people. They're available, they're actually doing things, and I feel that we've always got to ask ourselves, can I do more? Because the point here really is that, we have youth in Kenya. I was in a conference recently in the World Bank. And the people in the World Bank said, look, the human talent in Kenya is just phenomenal. Compared, let's say, to other African countries, when you go and travel to those other African countries, you realize that we're streets ahead of them. And, you know, but I think here, rather than try to resuscitate, for example, Mumia Sugar Company and things like that, which we've destroyed ourselves, you know, let's in fact concentrate on the SME sector. And I think this is where you were saying, you know, this is where, you know, you build an economy by having many, many small SME entities, okay? Because they are the ones which are going to create employment. They're going to create very much more employment than, you know, you take Kenya Breweries, okay? They're obviously, they used to employ 15,000 people. They're now employing just over 1,000. In many bigger companies, you've got to think about, you know, your shareholders and what is the dividends and so on. But with small and medium-sized enterprises, if we have me looking after my little business and I realize, now wait, if I go and get drunk and I can't serve my customers tomorrow, I'm going to have to pay the price. But you know, in a big company, you can hide behind your colleagues and so on. So I feel that the SME sector is of paramount importance to the future of Kenya, and we've really got to develop it.
Thank you. Biloke, I come to you. Prof, Biloke.
On the same, I think I agree with what you said, that in this country, the manpower, the skills, I mean, that we have, I think it's really unmatched in other parts of Africa, including even in South Africa. I mean, there are more Kenyan professionals working in South Africa than in any other country in Africa. But so for me, the most important thing is for all these Kenyans who are enterprising and they want to do their businesses, mostly on the small and medium-sized enterprises. These are the people who have no access to funding. And because they have no access to funding from the banks, that's why the government is coming up with these little funds to assist the most needy ones out there. But I think what the government assists through those youth funds and so forth are not the actual bigger, you know, MSMEs that you see out there who are trying to access funding, and that they're not accessing funding actually. So I think more than even the mentoring, more than even the, you know, the skills that we're talking about, what people need to start up a business, it's capital really. And this is where the problem, and this is something you find in countries like US now, even in UK, there's a lot of focus on SMEs to try and get them, you know, financed, because that is where that's how to create jobs.
Yeah, I think we have navigated on the issue of SMEs and the funding. I was talking primarily on the issue of setting up a consortium of think tanks who have retired, and how then do we come up with maybe a public or a policy engagement and a framework for that as well moving forward, so that we don't lose this talent. I normally ask myself, where is Muri Awori? Yeah, he's just maybe
when you have a country,
we have so many people who have retired, and I think they have rich seam of information that we can tap into, right? Yeah. There is a gentleman. The reason also, there's a gentleman one time that we were having an interview, and I think we were talking about Ken Okoth, who had passed on because of cancer, and the following day I met a gentleman. He had come very early, 5:30 in the morning. And so he was seeking to actually, you know, talk to me, and he was now prevented, you know, coming to the building by, you know, the security guards. So he waited until 9 o'clock when we were done with the show, and I was there downstairs, and then he walked up to me and he said, "Dibal, my name is Dr. Shege." He's an elderly man, around 71, and he was carrying a briefcase. So he approached me and said, "Dibal, my name is Dr. Shege, and I can cure cancer." So I was taken aback, you know, when we were talking about cancer and you can cure cancer. First of all, you wonder, is this one of those quacks now who you're telling them, we are approaching you that he can cure cancer? So he told me, no, just hold on, listen to me first. I need to sit down with you and just take you through what I have here in the briefcase. If we can go to the boardroom, and then just give me some time and tell you why I'm here to see you and how I have a solution. So I looked at him, then we went up to the boardroom. We sat for almost 4 hours. He sat down with me. And then he opened all these, you know, tomes of books that he had written. And I think he was a pharmacist. And they were very, very, they looked not a quack completely. This is a guy who's really, he knows what he's really talking about. He told me also the way he's been at the fora to go during the Ebola with the team, you know, and help the country there. And he told me, Dibal, I am being frustrated by the government. I have approached even the University of Nairobi with this particular letter. He produced a letter. I have solutions. I'm an elderly man. I'm not really, bonkers as they think that I am. I am an elderly man, and I don't want to die with all this knowledge. I just want to help this country. So I took some of those papers and I decided, let me try and give them to one of my doctor friends that I know to just maybe scrutinize and tell me. So he took me and to one point, and I can remember, and he told me, do you know this malaria drugs can actually cure, the flu? Yeah, I've tried it on my my grandchildren, and it does really work. It is just a matter of, given an opportunity to know what we can do. Boom, COVID-19 happened. Then what do we see on the splashes of the dailies? The way malaria on the quinine can actually cure COVID-19. We know there was all that particular story. And he told me, can you connect me? There is this institution in Japan. Yeah, we can work and I have the cure. These are the people that you can see. And then he showed me the pictures. Some tumors have peeled off their faces. But, the big farmers will not really allow me to do this. So the point is, I'm trying to raise is, Dr. Shege gave me his number. He used to call me, because even me, I distanced myself out of, and I feel guilty up to today, because I knew maybe this was a gentleman. Up to today, I don't know what happened. If you call his number, it's completely off. I don't know where Dr. Shege is, but maybe he had an answer.
He's being killed by the big farmers.
No, exactly. No. But he told me. Then he told me, hey, Dibal, my phone is perpetually off. Don't be calling me. Yeah, I'll be trying to reach you and find out. So he used to call and say, hey, have you tried to, approach these people?
Why is phone off perpetually?
I don't know. Yes. So yeah. So I can't really track him right now.
Even Chris Kirubi consulted him. He used to live in Muranga.
You know him?
Yeah.
You do?
Well, I know of him. I don't know him, but I know of him.
Okay.
And he, in fact, discovered this. But you see, the big cancer is big business.
Of course.
Yeah.
So therefore, if you actually discover a cure for cancer, you are not very popular with the big pharmaceutical companies in the world.
It's true.
And the story that I've heard is this man, Shege, disappeared. Okay? And the story is that they didn't want him curing people of cancer. I have a friend, Tom Kimani is his name. His mother was cured of cancer going to Dr. Shege. And the point is, it's a bit, cancer is big business, and the West, you see, this is where the Western world, they talk about human rights, and they are precisely the people who are denying human rights left, right, and center. They're all hypocrites.
So how does that make me feel? Seriously. Dr. Shege just walked to me, and I feel like I didn't help him.
Yeah.
No, he had a cure. He had a cure.
If he had a cure truly, and he was really genuine, we have people like this in this country.
I think, Dibal, that is really the place where the connection like we have here. Yeah. Somebody like that may need a different access which can allow him to penetrate into areas that he needs to. And that's why I'm saying a lot of us retired people who have those connections and have that kind of thing really need to step up and pick up the Dr. Sheges of this world and say, okay, I believe in what you're doing. I can see what it is. Let me start walking through some corridors. And it is understanding those corridors that can unlock the opportunities for those people that I think the likes of ourselves who are now not in gainful employment, but can actually pick up that kind of case and bring it forward. I think that's what we should be offering. There are young men out there who've got the similar thing. Across all the ages, there are people out there who have got some incredible ideas, and they've done some incredible research. And when you just pick one and navigate with them, then the breakthroughs can begin to happen for this country. And I think if you look at, for example, I just look at the IT business in this country. There are a few people who have taken through those kind of things, right? And what have we got in this country? We've got these incubation centers, which have been made for the IT. They are simple things to do. But do we need centers like that across the country, where people can come in with almost any idea, and you give them space to be able to grow a little bit, and then expose them, and then from there they're able to now begin to grow. And as Jim said, big pharma is big, and the kind of Dr. Shege, they don't want to see those people, right? It's really sad. And they'll be kept down, yeah. And you look at social media, there's a lot of stuff. People who have done this, have done that, and the other. We need to sift through all that and get the people who have got some genuine stuff that can actually transform Kenya, transform the world. You see? And these incubation centers need to be set up not just for IT. We need to set up incubation centers that allows almost anybody to walk in. They have a space for a period of time. You look at them and you move them up. And it is not Big Pharma who's going to do them. It's not whatever it is. That is part of our government's responsibility to open up those places that people can begin to incubate ideas and grow them up. I know Strathmore's got those kind of, they've got an incubation center in different sectors actually. They've got IT, they've got climate change, they've got whatever it is and so forth, where people can come in and they're able to be helped. I think if we are going to make a difference, we need those as well. And the mzees like Patrick and Jim, we can actually work in those kind of places and be able to help those people understand what they're doing, give them some advice, challenge them, right? And just make sure that what they're doing is can actually pass muster in places. And once that is done, then we say, good, now let us start walking the journey with you.
Yeah. Forgive me for getting a whippy teary, because I just felt he was a gentleman who really has so much promise, and he's not really giving, and he's so genuine. And I feel guilty that maybe even for me, I never really took any effort to try and help Dr. Shege after I promised to. So now he's off, and I'm surprised that
Now we're here. Now we're here. You know who to talk to.
and that's why Dibal. Remember, I keep on saying, those of us with ideas have no power, and those in power have no ideas. And we have to figure out how we bring all this talent that is within our people for productive use for solving problems in this country. I know, like now, I know there's a gentleman, there's a lab, there's a tech lab called Adalab. That is doing a lot of work in this country. They're incubating all manner of blockchain technologies that affect different sectors of the economy. I am trying to set up an agri-tech incubation center. My passion in agriculture, where we can come and young people can come, and we have all sorts of manner of problems that's facing agriculture. We sit back, we work with them, we work through the ideas, then we get funding if the ideas become viable for funding. Now, those things are needed in this country in different sectors and different parts of the technology space. Once we do that, the likes of Dr. Chege and others, if there was a healthcare incubation center that he could have gone to, or an organization like MEDS, for example, who have fantastic labs that they can be able to use outside of government. Because sometimes when you work with government, and that's why I tell people sometimes, you have to work as if there is no government.
Correct.
Because if you assume government is going to help, they are not going to help. Because they have their processes and procedures, they have their interests, and there's also the C word that we call corruption that is in all these places. You also don't want to share your ideas, because sometimes your idea gets taken away and
like McPhee here.
Am I right? And my idea is agriculture.
Oh, your idea is
you need to go to the incubation center.
Maybe you need to team up and get the incubation. So the ideas are there. We just need to find a way. How do we cross-fertilize these ideas to solve different societal problems? We have the solutions. Kenyans have very good ideas. If you go to Rwanda, South Africa, all these are neighboring countries. You have a lot of Kenyans that are driving policy and driving very, very sophisticated ideas on farming, on medicine, and all this. But when it comes to our own country, we are not able to do some of those things. And that's the environment that Bill and Mike and Bill and Patrick are talking about, where we find ways of getting these ideas to a real product.
Thank you.
Or a real service.
Thank you, thank you. Let's hear from...
Dibal, I think in a country where, you know, the power of thought or thinking is not encouraged, you have those kind of challenges that Professor Chege. I remember when I was a student for MBA, this multinational corporations, these large corporations in the US, some of them, you have a room with a table like this, with only a pad and a pencil. It's a thinking room. There's a breakout of 1 hour every day where you go and sit there yourself and think of any design of, you know, of any product, of any. The idea is to encourage you to think and come up with something. And I mean, it is amazing. If you look at some of the products that have come out of that process in some of those big corporations, you'll be surprised. But you see, the sad thing is, I don't even blame the big pharma in this country. I blame the institutions of higher learning, like universities, because those are the ones who should be jumping onto that kind of a mosaic and tell him, my friend, you have something, yes, please come, because they are there to, you know, to do research. They are there to develop. But you remember what happened to Professor Bell? You know how you get ridiculed if you come up with any idea.
Yes.
That is not in tandem with what the West is doing. You are considered, you know, but you know, they think you have lost your mind. So we've been captured mentally by, if you are not thinking West, you are not doing what, you know, you're considered to be. So I think this is an unfortunate thing. I think today research is the most important thing in this world. That's how all this technology, you know, coming out from all this Asia and Europe is because of research, because of thinking. But our universities are not encouraging you on that. The moment you come up with something like what that professor did, which is not, you know, what they used to. I know so I think the sad thing is our institutions. Those are the ones who should provide. You see what happened last year when Corona came up.
Yes.
And some individuals came up with ventilator design. Others came up with designs for beds. And you see how long the government, none of it was taken up. You remember what happened to those boys in Kiambu? On the beds.
On the beds.
You know how they got, you know, ridiculed and frustrated.
Yes.
So, and there are so many of those kind of, you know, challenges we have in this country. And the problem is our institutions and our mentality. That, you know, what is developed in this third world is not deemed to be something of value to the rest of the world. And it's a sad thing.
Indeed.
Yeah, and we also have to appreciate the fact that we can have real African ideas solving African problems. We don't have to depend on Europe, we don't have to depend on the US and other countries to bring these ideas to fruition. A friend of mine who runs Gearbox is an incubation center.
Yeah.
He had a design, Dr. Kamau, he had a design for a ventilator during COVID. But instead of us now picking that up and making that into an actual product.
Perfecting
that into an actual product. It becomes very, very, very difficult. So without funding, that's where the issue of funding comes in. Without funding, some of these ideas will not be able to happen. I'll give you a good example. After the 2001 terrorist attack in the US, a friend of mine, she's Kenyan, she has a PhD in fluid dynamics. And she was approached by those guys in Langley on how to make sure that they can take a lab the size of this and miniaturize that into a box where foreign agents in water, because the US they were worried about the water towers being poisoned. And in the US, we drink water from the towers, and probably Europe do the same thing. So if that water is poisoned, how many people would it kill in a very short period of time? But the only tests that were being done were being in Langley, Virginia. You know who sits in Langley. Now, what she did, she went to Duke University. It was funded by government, or given about $5 million to start the process. And within 6 years, they were able to miniaturize a lab the size of this room into a box. Now, every major city in the country has that box, such that if a terrorist attack were to happen within the water system, within a very short period of time, they will be able to know which agents are in that water. Now, that takes an idea, fund it, make it possible, provide the infrastructure around it. And that's why when I look at the University of Nairobi, I call the University of Nairobi the biggest dinosaur of higher education in this country. Why do I do that? I say that because being the first national university in this country, It should be the one that's driving technology and innovation over the last 60 years they've been in existence. The likes of Strathmore and others have come along the way. But we need to challenge our universities in terms of research and actionable research that can be able to solve real problems in this country.
Right, indeed. And it also raises a serious question, because right now, when we look, Kenya has missed out on an opportunity to host the African Medicine Agency headquarters following delays in concluding the ratification process on an African Union treaty. An executive council meeting in Lusaka picked Rwanda to host the newly established agency of the AU, expected to contribute towards improved regulation, that is regulation of medicine, medical products and technologies. Foreign Affairs Cabinet Secretary Rachel Omamo in May wrote to the Parliament for approval of Kenya's ratification of AU's treaty for the establishment of the Africa Medical Agency, meaning that the country failed to meet the June bidding deadline. The National Assembly was invited to consider and approve Kenya's ratification of the African Union Treaty for the establishment of the African Medicine Agency. This is what Omamo said. And we're talking about this particular agency, what it will have done for this country, because of dead hand of bureaucracy, and we don't really pay attention to, you know, such opportunities when they show up. Now this has gone to Rwanda. Particular.
I don't know what to say. When you go into that august house and you ask what are their priorities in terms of this country, that is the kind of mismatch that you get, right? Ratifying protocols that would be of benefit to this country, forget about even just hosting it. We were going to bid against several countries. Yes. We may or may not have got it. But the fact that there is this Pan-African initiative to try and sort of work around the medicines and medical area is great. And we should have ratified it. We should see what are the good things that this country can benefit from by collaborating internationally. I'll give you an example of something that we started here in Kenya. We had, this is within KEPSA, we started off with all the people in the various medical fields used to bicker. So when you talk about how good is tobacco, should you ban it? The doctors had a view, the pharmacists had a view, and all the rest of them. And within the medical circles, you could not get an opinion out of it. So we formed, we tried to get all these associations that are medical together. So we formed the Kenya Healthcare Network. They came together and they started talking to each other. That organization then bred the East African one. And currently we have an Africa Healthcare Network where the medical people are getting together to discuss common problems that can work to either on that. And that particular ratification would have created exactly the same thing at the policy level. That's what it was doing. And being able to now put it together, the thinking across Africa around medical policy, that's a no-brainer. But when you go to the august house, the priorities are completely skewed. And I think there needs to be an organization, I'm sure it exists, that allows the august house to be able to prioritize things in a rational way. I'm not sure how it happens at the moment. Right? But we've lost an opportunity, and that is not the only one. Yet there are others that we go ahead and ratify immediately. And those ones are not the ones that might benefit us in the short term. So Bilo maybe might be able to help us on that one.
No, I think
we need to be able to do that.
It depends on whether the Ministry of Foreign Minister, most of those kind of documents are prioritized by the ministry and submitted to Parliament. So I think it goes through Cabinet, and so forth. So I won't know at what stage probably. But those kind of documents, when they come to Parliament, it's just an adoption really, because there isn't much. You're not legislating anything, so it doesn't take long. So I think, I don't know at what stage maybe the government did not submit it to Parliament for approval. I won't know, but it should be straightforward. I mean, institutions like that are not something that we should have lost. So I think there are protocols, there are a lot of those kind of things that sometimes don't find their way into Parliament for one reason or the other. Government slows down on them for they have other I think competing probably other reasons maybe that for one reason or another the government is not keen on getting them ratified or the protocol signed or something. So I don't know, I won't know, but the Parliament should normally, when those kind of thing comes, depending on the agency, how government operates. Through the majority leader, if these things come to the House and it's of priority, then they get done. But if the government is not keen on it, then it probably even won't find its way into Parliament.
All right. But beyond that, there's something I've always wanted, and Bill is here. You have these guys when they're running for office. Very bright ideas, very good. You have lawyers, you have doctors, until they go to Parliament. And I've always wondered, Patrick, I don't know, until they go to Parliament, whether it's a pill called stupid that they take, that they do some of the dumbest things when they go to Parliament. That I don't understand. And when they're out here, they're absolutely fantastic. You sit down with them, you're having policy discussions, you're having all this. But when it goes to Parliament, I don't know whether it's the appeal that these guys are given, that all of a sudden, all those insights that they have when they're out here, they disappear totally.
You get sucked into this vortex called the hard mentality. That is the biggest thing called stupid that you're trying to profile.
I tend to think that the problem very often is not with Parliament. It could be. But I think very often, you see, we have individuals who put themselves before Kenya. And Moses Changwoni is a man I know. He is a very good agriculturalist. He was going to develop the whole thing of the Tana River. He said, well, look, we can't do this on our own. We're going to get a Swiss company to come and do it with us. So he brought them here. The managing director went to see the CS for agriculture. This was not the most recent CS. It was some years ago. The fellow, where is my $1 million? They never heard anything more from that particular Swiss company. I know a contractor, he went to Kilifi, let me mention the county. He said, look, I've come to do low-cost housing here. And the governor said, okay, well, you begin by giving me 1 million shillings. He just walked out the door. And this has happened time and time and time again. And, when, for example, Microsoft were excluded from South Africa, they said, we're going open source. Microsoft ran to Kenya, ran to Nigeria, and told the people in government, look, we're going to give you this free. We will give all the primary schools and secondary schools Microsoft free of charge. And if you now ask me to actually start accessing the internet using open source, I can't do it. I'm absolutely, I have to use Microsoft. So the point is really that, but it is individuals very often. And, Qatar came to Jomo Kenyatta International Airport. We want to make this the African hub. I don't know what happened, but they're in Rwanda. And I remember coming out of Rwanda with a Kenyan. We were sitting together in early 2006. And as we took off from Rwanda, Kigali Airport, this man leant over to me and said, look, Jim, if we're not careful, these people are going to take over Kenya's position. And we're now seeing that. And it is, individuals who are benefiting at the expense of Kenya. Because don't forget, you can grow tea in Rwanda as well as in Kenya. People want to try to destroy the tea industry here. You can grow tea in southern Tanzania, you can grow tea in Malawi. But, people are not thinking about the future of Kenya. They're just thinking, okay, well, I need to get elected. And, for example, if you have hand-picking of tea, you're losing money. You've got to mechanize that process. But now this is a big issue. And, and people, and there's a certain gentleman, he is, I think he even is a doctor, Atwoli, okay? Very, very learned man. Who's he thinking about? Well, go down to Kajiado and have a look. See what's there. So, we are just thinking about ourselves and we're not thinking about the future of Kenya.
And exactly, we lost to Aliko Dangote as well. Yeah, he wanted to put a cement factory here.
Correct.
What really happened? The same story about corruption, and he elected to actually put it up in Tanzania.
It is true. We see in KEPSA, we have a big frustration. People come to us about they want to set stuff in Kenya, and they're invited to join this gravy train, right? And they're globally, that is something that nobody is going to touch. And you're finding a lot of investments are being diverted to other parts of Africa because of what we're doing in this country. So this disease, the sea disease that that Prof is talking about, is probably our biggest. It's the biggest thing. Is our Achilles heel as a country, right? And the Dangotes of this world. I mean, if you look at, they invested in Tanzania,
yes,
and look at what that impact had in Kenya. One company went down because of that, right? In fact, 2 companies have suffered as a result of Dangote doing that directly. And the cement industry in Kenya overall has had to readjust its thinking because of a big plant that Dangote set up in Tanzania, not in Kenya. And you look at people going to invest in Uganda and places like that, and they are not investing in Kenya. I'll give you an example. We went to visit the business park in Rwanda at the invitation of the Rwanda government. And we found a Chinese lady who had set up a garment factory in Rwanda. And they're exporting to the US. Now, think of a garment factory in Rwanda that has no cotton, has nothing at all. All they've got is an enabling policy. And this person is able to set up at the back end of the logistics chain, right? You go to get raw material into Rwanda, convert it and get it out. And if you're in Dar es Salaam or Mombasa, you've already got an advantage in terms of the logistics cost of there and back. And they could still manufacture cheaper than somebody in Dar es Salaam. Right? And it's all around the policy situation that every country has got in terms of getting people in and delivering on that policy. We have great policies in Kenya, but the people who are supposed to deliver those policies are the problem. So when you talk about people going into parliament and things changing, it's the same thing, right? The August House is supposed to be the one that helps this country deliver on policy. But individuals, when they go in that place, they see a different opportunity from the opportunity of serving Kenyans through creating right policies for this country. And that is our downfall, right? So it's not only about industry. I think in general, the opportunity of the right people creating the right policies and driving the right policies to create the right conditions in the country without personal gain.
Correct.
Without, whatever it is, whether it is money, whether it is position, whether it is horse trading for politics, whatever it is, without personal gain. That really is what is bringing this country down.
Thank you. Bill, you wanted to say something. I saw you, so that we can wind up on it. I think we've not looked at the business daily. Remiss if you don't.
Prof, you know, Kenyans are opportunists, driven by self-interest and driven by greed. And I think it's not only parliament, by the way. Anyone who goes to government, even in government, by the way, in the cabinet, you've seen. There are times when people have been hired from the top institutions in the world, World Bank, IMF, when they join government. You know, after a few years, you've seen what happened to them. So I think, unfortunately, it's it's something that has become pervasive. This culture has become pervasive.
And I think, last, and you're right.
And it needs to be read. But there's a story which I have never told for 1 minute. I just want you guys to know. In 2005, when the CPA, Comprehensive Peace Agreement, was signed in South Sudan, and so a delegation from South Sudan came and invited us. We were in the official opposition. So I remember I was the shadow finance minister together with Uhuru was the chairman. About 3-4 of us were invited for a meeting in a hotel, and they gave us a presentation. There was a proposal for them to build a railway and a pipeline from Juba going through Songhai all the way to Mombasa. This is 2005. They have done all the studies, and it was going to cost about 3 billion euros. Yeah, and part of that 2 billion would be on the side of Kenya from the border up to here, and then on their side 1 billion. They said, look, from our side we have already got the funding from some German consortium based on the future outflows of petroleum. And they wanted Kenya now to sign on to this so that then they can, because then they will recover most of Kenya will get most of their money from the investment through the charges they'll make on the pipeline and the railway and so forth. Yeah, they said we have gone to the government. It's 2005, and they are frustrated. They said now we are thinking of going and doing that thing through probably Uganda all the way to Dar es Salaam or through to the Atlantic. But since you guys are the official opposition, we thought it is an opportunity for us to share this with you. This was a delegation from South Sudan government. So that you guys know that we, as South Sudan, we've tried all this and we're getting frustrated. And they've been told, you want this, yes, before we sign on to anything. It's about who's going to do it, which company, and can we, that was the issue. And that if they are not going to get their interest, this was particularly from the minister at that time in charge of transportation and so forth and all those things, that they were not going to sign on to it. And that thing ended up, you remember, now they've started another one called LAPSET. You know how much the cost of LAPSET was 5-6 years ago? They're talking of 25 billion. At that time, that same work was going for about 3 billion euros only.
And it's the same.
And today, I'm sure if that LAPSET starts, it will go to 100 billion because it's already taken. So I think the challenges we have of what the gentlemen have said regarding our rent-seeking behavior in government, in parliament, in all our institutions, it's a challenge that we have to deal with really at some point in our lives in this country. Otherwise, we'll lose a lot as a nation.
And I think going back to Jim Dibal, maybe we don't need democracy. We probably need strong leadership. Jim was talking about. But
we don't want to die.
I'm just echoing Jim's comment. No, Dibal, seriously, we are our worst enemies in this country. And I remember a few years back when I hosted the First Lady when I was at MATA. I was the CEO at MATA at that time. And we started discussing serious macroeconomic issues of this country. And one thing she told me that stuck in my mind, she said, Professor, we are our worst enemies. And I honestly do believe that. We are our worst enemies. This thing called corruption is killing this country slowly, is killing the future of this country slowly. And that's why the character of the people that we put in power is extremely important if we are going to fight corruption.
Thank you. All right, I know we're remaining with just a few minutes, but I wanted just to also broach what is on the front page of the Business Daily, where CBK is blocking interest-free Lipa na M-Pesa loan plan. We're talking about interests. We've seen this particular story happening since the beginning of the year, where CBK also has been seeking Safaricom to unbundle the M-Pesa, a part of it. And these are some of the challenges that are going through. When we're talking about incentivizing, the business environment to the policy, what will you make of this particular headlining story there?
I know you're looking at me, Adiba. And I'm going to be very careful what I say. Because we've got a very, very good government in the central bank in terms of the traditional ways that things work. But I think this is disruption beginning to hit.
Yeah.
It's the same way M-Pesa hit the banking business when it first came in. And fortunately, at the time when M-Pesa came in, we had two people who had very open minds at that time. We had Professor Dungu, who was the governor of the central bank, and Bitange Ndemo, who was sitting as the ICT minister. The two of them decided to say, how can we regulate something we don't really understand? And we don't know the dynamics of this thing, because it's brand new.
Yes.
And they said, hands off. And I was involved in some financial institutions at that time, and all of us were saying, kill it, kill it, kill it. Right? Yes. Because it's going to disrupt our space. And look at what it has done. It has disrupted positively that space. Now, talking about 0% interest, all of a sudden is a disruption.
Yes.
Because our whole setup in this country is all around, we have to pay interest when you're working within the financial services. So here is somebody who comes up and says, I will charge 0 interest on a loan. Now people are saying, hey, we need to understand how this thing works and everything else. By the time you've understood that, the thing will have bolted to another place and be working elsewhere, and you're killing it. This is the kind of thing I would actually say, okay, let me watch it. Let it continue. I'm not going to license it. Neither am I going to deny it a license. Just watch it. And within a year, you will know how to regulate it, because you will understand how that animal is. In my view, the way that animal will operate is that whilst I'm offering you 0 interest, there's a lot of people who are going to jump into that space. right? And they've got they go to the KYC, they go to everything in that process. So it's not a stupid thing. They're smart business people. They're going to get their money out of some other place where people are making money. So to belong to this family that is getting zero interest, if you're a supermarket, if you're so-and-so, if you're X, Y, and Z, you've got to pay a belonging fee, a commission of some kind. That's how they make their money. And the person who is out there is benefiting from free interest. That is a disruptor. And if it is my personal thing, I would say, let's not stop it, let's not license it, let's just watch it. That is an incubation space that allows the idea to grow, that will probably disrupt the whole thing. And then the traditional people, the banks, the lenders, whatever.
Shouldn't we welcome disruption?
I think we should welcome disruption, right? Put it in a box, let it work, and whatever it is, look at it, but don't let it become, too big. And then, if you want to regulate it, regulate what you see and what you know. Don't regulate it before it starts, because you might kill it at that point. And that is where Bitang and Demo, and I think, and the previous governor actually opened up the space for M-Pesa.
Right, McPhee.
No, I would agree 100% with Patrick, and I feel that sometimes we have people who are retrograde. Thank goodness we had the previous governor when the whole thing of M-Pesa came into being, and it now has, as Patrick was saying, it's something that has changed the whole of Kenya. And I think in this case here, I would agree 100%. Let it start, let it go ahead, and then let's see whether we need to kill it at some later stage. But I would say, look, this is retrograde, stopping it at this point before it's even born. Let it be, and then let's see what the effect is.
Right. I don't know if Professor Dominic Mwenja will want to comment on this. Maybe I'll just it's a skirmish one for him, given his position right now. Yeah, I'll cross over to Bill Okero.
No, I think, my challenge, Dibal, about central bank in the last few years. Central bank is a captive of the big banks. Central bank as a regulator has ceased to be independent, really, because there are many. This is not the first one. There are several other similar circumstances where central bank has not really been very independent. For example, on this matter, they had given a provisional approval months ago. And yesterday was supposed to have been the launch.
Yes.
So you wait that afternoon when everyone has set up and people have been invited, and you go there, then you send a call and say, stop it. I mean, that's not the way government should run, institutions. I think they had an opportunity when these people applied months ago, and they gave them provisional, so they must have had time to study. So I think
was there a big call that came from somewhere?
Who knows?
There could have been a big call that actually all systems were to go. You are here expected to be launching, and you get a call.
It's really very unfortunate, because first of all, me as a Muslim, I would welcome any zero interest business. And by the way, they are very clear on what they are doing. They have said we are making our income through charges. This is service delivery. We'll get our money through the services that we'll charge. And we'll share that. There's a revenue sharing formula they'll have between the bank and M-Pesa and the other players. So it's not going to be free, but they're not going to charge interest on the money. They're going to charge you for the service that they're going to give you of accessing money. So I think I agree with you. It's a disruption that should have been taken positively. And you remember, I mean, when all these things came up for losers, the banks are always cautious, and the banks don't want to lose business. And the banks... And central bank is there for banks. That's what they always, and that is the unfortunate thing. Our institutions, KRA, central bank, sometimes they forget their role is not just regulatory. They must also facilitate business.
Correct.
And that is the aspect that they always, slip on. And this for me is the most important role really that these institutions should play. I have said, for example, look at central bank. If the bank today says you're a banker, you want a license for a bank, yes, okay, fine. Our requirements are that 30% of your money, please lend to agriculture, or 10% of your money give to SMEs. We want to, at the end of the day, when we audit your books every month, we want to see. There is no requirement. You are giving these people what they want. You're not looking at the economy. You're looking at how to preserve those banks so that they can make profits. And then you come and announce on the end of the year when they make profits. You're very happy. Every sector in the country is collapsed. But the banks have made, trillions, and you're happy, and you say, the banks have done well. You see, we have done well looking after the banks. I think central bank has lost it, really.
It's lost it. Let me give you the disruption that is here. Traditionally, you have got a lot of money, and you're charging people to access the money. The disruption is going the other way around. I am going to have a lot of customers, and I'm going to charge the money to access the customers. That's the disruption. It's just a change in terms of where the need is identified, right? People want customers. And that's what this guy is doing. He's just going to have hundreds and thousands of customers that the money is going to be looking for. And I'll charge the money people to access my customers. That's the disruption.
Yeah.
Service delivery.
So service delivery, central bank is just serving its own interests, the interests of the banks. So this is a fight between the technos or the telcos and now the banks.
It's a reality of disruption.
Okay.
Disruption in technology is going to catch people unawares. And we really have to just, as we've said, let the disruption happen. Once it has happened and we understand what it is and what it's doing, then we come and regulate it.
But how do we read it that from before we've seen central bank has been pushing also for the unbundling of M-Pesa from Safaricom? Even now, when they come up with a very innovative idea again, they're being slammed. It seems now you're not really given that.
I think the unbundling is a different issue. Airtel has just done it. Airtel money has been delinked from Airtel so that they become two businesses. It was actually trying to get away and trying to find a way around this monopoly issue, this dominance issue in terms of the telco market. Because when you look at Safaricom and what is done in that area, if they unbundled M-Pesa and made it to a different company, then the dominance issue will disappear, right, in terms of that. So I think there is a method to that madness. It's a suggestion. Airtel have taken it, and there is easy for them because I think they're present in a lot of African countries, and it makes business sense to do that. For them. And I think it's something that should be considered. When you're in a position that you're a very strong player, sometimes you sort of you still have your big company at the top, and then you bundle some of them to make them smaller, and allows you to fall under the radar.
Right. Okay, talking about unbundling as well, and even as we're winding up, I can divest unless you want to say something.
Let me comment because I'm on both sides. Let me comment now.
We knew you were going to come somewhere.
Are you sure? We just want to keep your partners dry.
It's a digital disruption, and what we are seeing is the emergence of non-banking financial institutions that were not there in the traditional ways of banking, and therefore disruption will be there. But then the regulator has to figure out how to make sure that some of these disruptions are actually beneficial to the customer. And I'm looking at some of the things that CBK is looking at. Demands that regulated firms provide features, terms of agreement for customers, fees charged on the product, and proof of measures to guard against risk involving the product. And I think it's good to have a look at the disruptions that are coming from the non-banking financial institution, driven by technology, driven by AI and blockchain technology and all that. But then at the same time, we should at some point be able to accept the fact that these disruptions are coming, and they will come, and they will continue coming. But the regulator also has a place the regulator has a role and place to play in terms of making sure the customers are safeguarded.
Right.
But we are already doing this, by the way. If you look at what M-Pesa is doing right now, we are already doing this with M-Pesa. The only thing we are saying now, I think from reading what I'm reading here, is they're saying you access fund, but you have to spend this money somewhere. And for you to spend this money somewhere, we're not going to charge you for the money, but you charge the person who is accepting your money to pay that. And I think the regulator has a role to play. We just have to watch the space.
Right. So talking of disruption as well, we have on the ticker there that KenGen is to branch into fertilizer production. State-owned Kenya electricity generating company KenGen has revealed plans to set up a fertilizer plant at a time an acute shortage of the vital farm input is threatening success of the country's crops and could lead to widespread food shortages. KenGen fertilizer, we had KPC, KPC with the fiber optics, people are divesting. We have seen Safaricom also, they're now going to the wealth management. I think that is another product that we're about to launch as well, or it's in the pipeline. All right.
Let me talk about that one tongue in cheek.
Yes.
And let me talk about the technical opportunity that they have. When they get gas, this steam from the ground, sometimes it's got a strange smell.
Yes.
That is hydrogen sulfide. Yes. Yeah? So I can actually extract the hydrogen sulfide, which gives me sulfur.
Yep.
And that is one of the things that forms a basis for fertilizer. So it's not a far-fetched idea.
It's not far-fetched.
It's just basically using what would normally be waste. And this is now creating what you call a circular economy. Right? Then let me stretch that thing a little bit further. So this is waste that they would normally get, and so they're taking, let's get that waste, let's get a stream out of it and commercialize it. Right? And hydrogen sulfide is actually, it can kill you if you're in a space and that is all that you have. About 8% hydrogen sulfide in air, you're dead. So they've seen an opportunity of taking that and extracting it and creating fertilizer out of it. So it's just an extension of their normal business. That's one way of doing it. The other way of thinking about it is that they've been raising a lot of cash as a company, and they're looking at a place that is easy to get into. And fertilizer in this country is a no-brainer. If you get economies of scale, right, you're going to be able to just sell it and across East Africa, because there's nobody actually manufacturing fertilizer here.
Indeed.
So, yeah, so I don't know which way they're looking at it, but those are the two ways I'd look at in terms of opportunity. And not unreasonable,
all right,
from my view.
Thank you. We need to be winding up right now.
Dibal,
briefly.
I have a problem with government starting things. And I have a problem because government is very inefficient in delivery of services. What we should be doing, and I agree with Patrick, it should be another new industry that we are now, a private player coming, because this is a byproduct. And if a byproduct of for energy generation can create another industry, then I'm all for that. But for government to do the same inefficiencies we find in KenGen, KPLC, we're going to see the same in the fertilizer production and all that stuff. This needs to go to a private sector, somebody who will come and invest to use the byproduct of KenGen to produce fertilizer, not KenGen itself.
But it's good actually, it's coming at this providential time. You remember Mumia's with the Mumia bottled water? Yeah, all that steam was just going up the air for the longest time. And sugar in itself is actually the least of the product. The sugar, we should not really go for the sugar itself. Yeah, there's a lot of in-between products that we have, and sugar is the fun. Water was just going up until one day they discovered, oh, this is pure water, we can bottle it and sell it.
Let me tell you.
By the time now they're coming to do that, the market is already taken off.
If KenGen has so much money that they need to find somewhere to invest that money, they should be putting that to KPLC distribution or the cost of electricity in this country.
Thank you. Gentlemen, let's just wind up. Let's begin with Bill Okero.
No, I share the sentiments. You know, government in this country are worried. I mean, if it's a government institution that's largely owned, KenGen is largely owned by government, going into, and what we have seen in this country is the cost of production has made our products very uncompetitive in the region. So fertilizer is available all over the world. So are you going to be competitive given the way our operations are in this country, particularly when it's government owned? So I would be worried about the viability in the long term. Starting is easy, but so I would not be excited about. But there's opportunity for fertilizer. But how many times did we for the last 20 years try to establish fertilizer from KenGen up to now? I mean, it's been the story by government. And why has not a private company from the Gulf, where there's a lot of whatever, have they not come to invest? It's all about the government, really, and the cost of trying to get around government. So I don't know, but I'm not excited by it.
Yeah, it's a wait and see.
Yep.
Right. Dr. Buffy, your headline thoughts?
Well, I think Patrick has brought out a very, very important idea. But again, I would agree with my colleagues that probably the best thing to do is to try to get a private company to get in and do the work, because let KenGen, as you say, concentrate on trying to reduce the cost of power to Kenya Power and Lighting, so that Kenyans can then actually have a reduced cost to their power.
You know, you can think about fertilizer.
Private sector can
Private sector. Yeah. Patrick, your final thoughts?
No, I think I share the sentiments here. You know, there's a great idea here. Get private sector to do it, and let Kenyan focus on their core business.
Right.
Yeah, correct.
Professor?
Yeah, the same with Patrick. If they have this excess money, look at the tariffs that you charge KPLC for transmission. Lower that tariff. I'll have an impact. Bill wants to start a factory. His power will be much cheaper. So let's build efficiencies within the power distribution itself, instead of trying to get that money into a business that government, they're still going to mess it up. Just get the private sector there is a byproduct, and you'll be able to save this country a lot of money.
Right. Professor Dominic Pwenja, the chair of CBK Pension Fund, thank you for coming through. I also want to thank you, Dr. Jim McPhee, who is the director of School of Accountancy at the Strathmore University. Thank you for coming through this morning. Patrick Obath, I want to thank you as well. Engineer Patrick Obath is the chair of KEPSA Foundation. Bill Okero, thank you for coming through this morning as well. He is a businessman and a politician as well, the former chair of the Finance Committee in the Senate, and the former senator of Mandera as well. There's a lot of issues that we've not really discussed, but I think we went off the rails, but was good. But thank you for your input. I really do appreciate it. All right, thank you for your valued company as well. Don't go away. Much more is coming up also on Spice FM, so we'll get you also a handy opportunity to listen in a short while.